Angel, and Father Andy played baseball at Fort Hays State University. So if you are wanting to make a pledge, you can call us at 785-621-4110. We still have $23,235 in matching funds. So jump on that and help double your donation. Again, that's 785-62. Oh, excuse me. The pledge number is 785-621-4110. You can also text us at that same number, 785-621-4110. I do want to also give you our call station, our station call signs again. We'll start at the bottom this time. We're at 8901 KGOH Colby. We're at 88.1 KVDM in Hayes, 88.1 KRTT in Great Bend, 105.7 KMDG in Hayes, and 101.7 KJDM in Lindsborg and Salina. We do have a goal of $125,000 this time for our Joy of the Gospel Care-a-thon. And we are sitting right now, I think I told you, let me find my notes, around 32 or probably a little over $33,000 now. So thank you so much for that. Keep up the good work, and we appreciate that. We have coming up, as soon as we get them on the line, let me find my talking notes here. We are going to be speaking with Father Joshua Schneider. And so we're going to talk about the joy of marriage. So once we get him on the line, they come in and tell me he's on the line, we'll get that going. In the meantime, I'll get my headset on. And I'll get you started on your trivia for our 5 p.m. trivia. And these, again, is for 16 and under. And we'll also ask this again once we get Father Jacob on the line. But we want to know where Jesus was born. Was it in Bethlehem, Jerusalem, or Egypt? And you must be 16 and under to answer that question. And again, you can call in. Is he on the line?
Yep.
Okay. Father Joshua, are you with us?
Yeah. Yes, I am. Father Jacob. Yep.
We call you. You go by Father J, you said?
Father Jacob.
Father Jacob. Okay. Yep. I wanted to make sure I got that correct before we get going. So,
sure.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the call. And Father Jacob is going to be visiting with us on the joy of marriage. And I want to let you know who we're visiting with. And Father Jacob Schneider is from St. Anne's Parish in Olmutz, Kansas. He went to school in Hoisington, where he grew up as a farm kid in the middle of Kansas. He was ordained a priest for the Diocese of Dodge City, Kansas in 2017 and has served at St. Mary's in Garden City since 2019 as pastor. He is also part of the vocations team in his diocese and stays fairly busy wherever the Lord and the bishop sends him. In his free time, he enjoys going home, spending time with his family, shooting, butchering, and building anything he can. And so welcome to the call, Father Jacob. Anything you want to add to that?
No, just my pleasure and my joy to be with you guys. It's been a while since I've done interviews with Divine Mercy Radio, and you guys do great work, and just happy to support you in any way I can.
Excellent. Okay. Well, again, we did have our 5 o'clock trivia question. I'll bring it up, and you can't answer because you're a little bit over the age, but 16 and under can answer this question, and we want to know where Jesus was born. Was it in Bethlehem, Jerusalem, or Egypt? So we'll be speaking with Father Jacob about the joy of marriage, and we're going to talk about the vocation of marriage and marriage prep. In fact, I just had Father Andy on just before you, and we talked about vocations, and a lot of people don't think of marriage as a vocation. We think of being a priest as a vocation, or being a sister as being a vocation, or we think about what our job is. You know, I was in the insurance business for 34 years. That was my quote-unquote vocation, and maybe went to VOTEC school. So most people are called to some sort of vocation. Most of them are marriage. Would you share with us about your calling toward the priestly life?
Sure, Jim. So it's interesting you said Father Andy. I was in college with Father Andy.
I was going to say, he graduated a year after you did.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. So but so I guess to start with, and I'm sure Father Andy talked a lot about this, but a vocation, right? What makes it different? You were kind of using that example of your your career, your occupation as a vocation, and that is absolutely the way we use it in in colloquial conversation, in the United States, a vocation is just kind of turned into more utility than what the church would talk about a vocation as a calling from Christ. And so, and for every call, there's a response that the Lord waits for. And so, in my own calling, my own vocation story, I went to college there in Hayes, but I'm a college dropout. After my junior year, I left and went to the seminary. And actually, at that time, Father Fred was there. He was the chaplain at the campus center, and I hear that he's back in Hayes, America. And so,
yes, he is.
Good man. He's a good priest. Father Fred's one of the best. And I'll never forget when I was my own vocation story. I mean, when I was a kid, and Mom tells the story that I said I was going to be the first Pope from America. I don't remember ever saying that, but I don't put it past me. But ever since the time of First Communion, the vocation to the priesthood was always an attractive thing. I didn't have any really bad experiences from the priests that I grew up around. We had kind of an odd situation in Almitz at St. Anne's where we had the same pastor for over 3 decades. Father Olton Murphy, God rest his soul, he was there. He tells a story that the bishop moved me here and then they forgot about me, which there's more to the story than that. But just had a very positive experience with the priesthood. I had a cousin of mine, Mom's first cousin, Father Ted Steckline, who actually grew up in Colby. His mom was a nurse there in Colby, and she died young, unfortunately. And but he's a priest, so kind of grew up calling him Cousin Father Ted. I remember his ordination from a young age, and just several other good holy priests in my life who were very influential. Father Marvin Reif, who has also passed away, and yeah, just there's always always something attractive there. And for me, I'm one of 6 kids, and 5 of us are boys. One of the things that we loved to do was serve mass. And there was another family not too far, living too far away from us out in the country, and they had some boys, and we had a bunch of boys, and so it was kind of the Schneiders versus the Freebs who was going to get to serve mass on Sunday mornings. And it was always something enjoyable. I liked to help out, and it was a way in which I could be involved in the parish life. And so as a kid, I thought about that'd be something that I think I could do. But when I got into middle school and high school, I didn't want to be a priest at all. I wanted to be married. I wanted to have kids. I wanted to be a farmer. And I wanted to do sports. I did a lot of sports. I thank my parents for the opportunities that they presented to us. I mean, we were never super well off, but they always did what they could to provide for us. But they also made sure that we went to mass. I can remember, I can count on one hand how many times I've ever missed Sunday mass, and that's not just because I'm the guy that has to celebrate them all now. It's just we never missed mass as a family growing up. Faith was always important to our parents, and therefore it was important to our family. And when I was in middle school and high school, I didn't want to be a priest. I wanted to go play sports somewhere, football or wrestle or something like that, to help get a scholarship, pay for college. And the way I tell my stories, when I was a junior in high school at state wrestling, I developed a pain in the heel of my foot, and I thought, I just roll off the mat and hit it and screwed something up, whatever. Well, but by the time the summer rolled around, I was on crutches. I couldn't hardly walk, and so I had some illness that was preventing me from really thriving in sports, which I did well at for the most part. And so not having a senior year really for athletics, I wasn't going to get a scholarship anywhere. So I liked to teach. I like to build things. And so I figured, well, I'll just go up to Hayes and 48 miles away, go up to Hayes, get my degree in industrial arts or industrial technology education was the formal degree. And I could be a shop teacher and still farm and just kind of live the life that I wanted to live. And when I was there at Hayes, not for the first time taking my faith seriously, because I did take my faith seriously. I mean, my twin brother and I have a twin brother who married a gal from Catherine. He married a Schmeidler. Shout out to the Schmeidler clan up there. But when we always took our faith seriously, and when I was a freshman in college, a priest, a childhood priest that was influential in my life, Father Marvin Rife, came back into my life at the funeral of a priest in the family, Father Joe Barr. And it was at Father Joe Barr's funeral where another priest, Father Bob Schremer, he preached about if Father Barr could have one impact or one thing to make his life meaningful, it would have been to attract young men to the priesthood. And Father Barr down here in this part of the world in our diocese is a very beloved priest, a very boisterous, a very larger-than-life character. And when Father Bob preached that at his funeral homily, it just kind of hit me like, man, is this what the Lord wants me to do? And after that, it was December 27th was the funeral and the burial. I was part of the crew who helped shovel the snow to put Father in the ground because it snowed like, I don't know, 17, 14 inches, something like that day. And I ran into Father Marvin Rife at the funeral dinner, and he asked me, so you still thinking about being a priest? And I was like, no way, Jose. There was no way. There was no way, because at that time I was already head over heels in love with kind of the girl of my dreams, and I didn't want nothing to do with the priesthood, because if I was going to be a priest, I couldn't be married. And so I said, no, I'm not really thinking about the priesthood anymore. But he asked, can I give your name to the diocese for different activities and stuff? And I said, sure, fine, leave me alone. And that started something. I ended up going to what's called a Quo Vadis retreat. They still put these retreats on. Wichita Diocese puts them on, usually over Christmas break for college students. It's a great retreat. It's well done, done there at the Spiritual Life Center. And I went to that retreat, and I wanted to answer the question, Lord, what do you want me to do? What are you calling me to do? Because I was willing to do whatever the Lord was asking. I just wanted clarity. And so I went down there to that retreat, and I left that retreat, and I knew that I was supposed to get married. So I went back, started dating the girl of my dreams. Fast forward a couple of years, junior year of college, and started getting a little more serious with the girl that I was dating. And there was something that was just kind of always nagging at me. Everything was going great. I was coming towards the end of the end of my major in college and stuff, and life was good. But there was something that seemed to be missing, and actually her and I were both on the similar retreat. Well, similar retreat, we're on the same retreat. And on that retreat, the idea or the pulling at my heart of perhaps I was being called to be a priest came back full throttle. And I remember at the end of the retreat, I remember texting her. She's asking if I go and watch a movie, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but I'm going to go by the Adoration Chapel first. And I was just kind of overwhelmed with what the reality or what the sober reality of Christ calling me to be a priest, what that would mean in my life, because it meant that I was going to have to let her go. And the pain of someone that you love, giving them back to the Lord wasn't fun at all. But I knew if I didn't ask the question and seriously discern, I would think about being a priest the rest of my life. And so I didn't want that hanging over my head. And so I told God he had 1 year, because I needed to get back and finish my degree and start my family and work on the farm. And then as I filled out my application to seminary, and then the first several months of seminary were pretty rough for me. There was another guy, actually, we both went to college at Hayes together. He finished his degree, I didn't. He's Sean Coleman from Oakley. We were both with the seminary at the same time. Good man. And we would walk out of our rooms in the morning, and he would look at me and he's like, "You leaving seminary today?" I was like, "Nah, I'll stay." He said, "Okay, I'll stay too." And it was kind of like that the first several months, but the Lord was good. The Lord is good, and little by little made it clear what my vocation was. And so, if I'm honest, after the first 7-8 months in seminary, my prayer every day turned to, Lord, if you want me out of here, you got to take me out of here. Instead of, Lord, I just can't wait to get out of here type praying. So yeah, that's a abridged version of kind of where my call was. And then it was never really much of a decision for me. I grew up in the Diocese of Dodge City. Olmutz is in the northeast corner of our diocese, right by Great Bend, and I knew that I never really seriously discerned religious life or anything like that. I don't think a religious order could handle me, but yeah. So I had started my application, and as they say, the rest is history. So.
Well, I got a ton of questions, but I've also got to cover a lot of things, but just a couple of them. Okay, first of all, I thought you had to have a college degree to be a priest.
So I'm special, Jim.
Well, we know that.
So
we got that already.
So when I went to seminary in Denver, St. John Leon Theological Seminary had just reopened not too much before. So our diocese hadn't sent guys to Denver since 77, 79, something like that. And Denver they kind of pioneered one of the pre-theology programs that you, like you said, you have to have an undergrad to be a priest. Well, I have an undergrad degree. It's just accredited through the Latin University in Rome. It's not an American degree, and so that sufficed. So because I did 2 years of pre-theology and also 1 year it was called spirituality year then. Now it's called the propedeutic year. Seminary formation has changed quite a bit since I got ordained. But I did 3 years of what you might call undergrad type classes, and then I had 4 years of theology. And I have those 2 master's degrees that came from my studies there. So
you got your education.
Yeah, I'm educated.
All right. So you're not slacking on the college part anyway.
Yeah. So
one more quick question, then we're going to get to what we're supposed to be talking about. How is your journey to Pope coming along?
My journey with the what?
Becoming the Pope, the first Pope of America.
Oh, God help us if that ever happens.
Well, someone's got to be it.
Someone does got to be it, but I'll help them out. I don't think my phone's ringing anytime soon. So.
All right. Well, we'll watch for it. Well, let's go back to the joy of marriage in the sacrament. And this is interesting because I was married in the Catholic Church. I was not Catholic at the time. I joined the church later. But in the sacrament of holy matrimony, the man and the woman are the ordinary ministers, while the priest is the witness. Most people incorrectly think the priest is the minister of this sacrament. Could you please explain this for our listeners and for me?
Sure. So first off, when Nathan sent me the email and called me and asked me about giving the talk on, well, he didn't tell me I was talking about marriage until I saw it in the email. And I was like, why am I a priest talking about marriage? Yeah. And the answer to that is the same thing that when I talk with young men who want to discern the priesthood, and if I ever get a young guy who wants to be a priest but doesn't want to be involved in marriages or doesn't want to be around, like he doesn't have a real love for marriage. Mm-hmm. Quite frankly, I don't want him to be a seminarian. The marriage vocation and the priesthood vocation are both the sacraments of mission. Their mission is the same. Married couples are called by God to get their spouse and their children to heaven, and a priest is called by God to get the people in his care to heaven. Mm-hmm. Which some days I wish I was married. It's a lot less people.
Yeah, big responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. So there is there's a great love. I have a great love for marriage, and I always I preach a lot about this. Those best qualities that you want to see in a priest whom you love are the same qualities you want to see in a good husband and a good father. And so when it comes to the sacrament of holy matrimony, the sacrament of marriage, in an ideal situation in the eyes of the church, the sacrament of marriage is between two fully initiated Catholics in the church, witnessed first. The first witness is the minister of the church there before them. Now, we could have a whole week-long discussion about the difference between what the Roman Rite, the Roman Catholic Church, And the Western church, right, what the Roman church sees as the sacrament of marriage and how the Eastern church sees marriage, there's a difference there. So if anybody who's Byzantine or Orthodox or whatever, there is a conversation worth having there. But we're talking about marriage in the Catholic Church, in the Roman Catholic Church, and in every sacrament there's what we call form and matter. Okay, the form are the correct words. The matter is what makes up the substance of the sacrament. So for baptism, for example, the matter in baptism is water. It's got to be water. It can't be a Coca-Cola. It can't be a Corona, right? It's got to be water. And then the right words. I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Every sacrament has those two pieces of the puzzle. Well, in marriage, what is the form? What are the words in the sacrament of marriage? Well, it's the vows. Right? It's the exchange of vows that these two baptized people make one to another before the witness, the minister, and God and his church. Well, what's the matter? What makes up the marriage? Well, it's the entrustment, the giving of oneself, body and soul, to the other. And so the ministers, the actual ministers of the sacrament of marriage, are husband and wife. And the priest gets front row seats, right?
I guess.
And that's received in the place where we do things differently, the church, right? A sacred space set aside for the encounter with Christ in sacramental normative ways. And so I know every wedding what am I trying to say? Every wedding brochure or every wedding program, whatever, always says the minister is blah, blah, blah.
Right.
The ministers are the husband and wife because they administer, they give themselves as the matter in the sacrament to each other. And that is done in a public way because no sacrament is celebrated in secret. You can't celebrate a sacrament alone. I can't forgive my own sins. That'd be really nice, but that's not how it works. Every sacrament is celebrated in the community of the church. And so husband and wife profess their vows and the exchange of vows to each other, and that's received first by the first witness, which is the minister of the church in that sacred space.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sure 99% of the people do not know that. That was very interesting. Hold that thought for 1 second, Father Jacob. We do have a trivia winner. Nathan Wolf called in, and the question was, where was Jesus born? And that was, the correct answer was obviously Bethlehem. So we will have another trivia question here in about 10 minutes. We're visiting with Father Jacob Schneider on the joy of marriage. And so we were just talking about during the sacrament of holy matrimony, the man and woman are the ordinary ministers, or the priest is a witness. Now, Father Jacob, explain what typical marriage prep looks like for Catholic couples.
So that's a great question, because one of the complaints that sometimes I get from couples is, why does the church ask for so much? If you went through marriage preparations when you weren't a Catholic, I would imagine that might have ran through your head from time to time. Why does the church ask for all of this stuff?
I wore my wife out. Again, I was a Lutheran kid. My wife was a Catholic, and we had to go to Victoria and spend a weekend in the seminary there in Victoria. Spend the night. And I mean, why? Why do we need to do all this? Why in the world?
Right.
And I tell you what, when I got in my car that Sunday morning to leave, I just looked at it and said, "This was the greatest weekend. This was so cool. I really enjoyed it. I really, truly did. I didn't enjoy the Thursday, Friday before, and I'm sure my wife got real sick of me wearing her out all the way over to Victoria. But boy, when it was all over, it was well worth the time."
Right, and for most couples, they have a similar experience of what you just described right there. In marriage preparations, every diocese is a little different. Most dioceses ask for 3 or 4 main things for marriage preparations. Almost every diocese that I know of does some sort of a retreat or some type of a retreat-esque thing for the couple. Almost all dioceses that I know of do some sort of a questionnaire, some sort of an inventory of asking a bunch of questions to help paint the picture of what does this relationship look like from a number of different ways. I think in the Salina Diocese, they use the focus inventory, or maybe in our diocese, we use a questionnaire which is called Prepare Enrich. It's the same thing, different brands. It's asking questions about upbringing, questions about finances, questions about sexuality, questions about likes and dislikes and struggles, and it's taking a snapshot of the relationship from a number of different perspectives by asking a bunch of questions, and there's some sort of that evaluation, some sort of a inventory that takes place. Almost every diocese that I know of does something like that. So you have a retreat, you have this questionnaire. Every diocese I know of also asks that the couple meets with the priest.
Mm-hmm.
In our diocese, that looks different, very different from parish to parish. I mean, if you have a foreign priest who's coming from a way different background, that's going to look a lot different than when you meet with me. In my parish at St. Mary's here in Garden City, I meet with all my couples 4 or 5 times, which is a lot of work because I have a lot of couples. But in those meetings, I talk about the beauty of marriage. We talk about primarily the 3 goods of marriage, which is the good of the spouses, the good of the sacrament, the good of intimacy, the good of children, fruitfulness in married life. We talk about the actual ceremony, the rite of marriage. Because I want to make absolutely sure that this couple knows what they're being asked of and what they're getting themselves into, right? What their rights and responsibilities are in the sacrament of marriage. And so those 3 things, the retreat, the questionnaire, meetings with a priest, those are pretty universal. Most dioceses are moving towards another piece of the puzzle, which it often includes natural family planning. One of the biggest obstacles and wounds that couples have today because of the over-sexualized culture that we're coming from, one of the biggest struggles is sexuality. And natural family planning is all about letting our faith inform sexuality, intimacy within marriage, that most vulnerable embrace of husband and wife that needs to be talked about in a clear and concise and joy-filled, hope-filled reality. So most dioceses are moving towards some requirement of talking about sexuality in regards to natural family planning within marriage preparations. And then kind of the curveball, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of parishes or dioceses will have couples meet with another mentor couple, mm-hmm. so that they can know an older couple in the parish, and they can maybe take them out to dinner or take them out to breakfast after Mass on Sunday morning or something like that, sure. to help integrate them into the parish life. So the 3 main things: questionnaire, retreat, meetings with the priest. For the 4th and 5th, sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't. Natural family planning, letting our faith inform sexuality, and then that mentor prep couple walking with that couple who's going to enter into that sacrament.
Now, is it different again, as I talked earlier, I was not Catholic when I married my wife. Is the marriage prep different for couples of mixed faith? When you have a Catholic person and a non-Catholic person in your office, is it different?
There are some differences. There's not too many differences in those big 3, though. Mm-hmm. There's very few differences in that, except the topics that you're going to talk about. The major difference when a Catholic marries a non-Catholic, or even when a Catholic marries a non-baptized person, the biggest thing is you have to get special permission from the bishop, which is called a dispensation. You have to get that permission in order to do that marriage. Now, one of the biggest reasons why is because what is the desire of the church? The church wants Catholics marrying Catholics. Mm-hmm. And there's a number, we can talk a lot about why that is. But the main piece of the puzzle is when you have somebody who's fervent in another Christian denomination or another faith background, the church never wants to beat them over the head with what we ask of Catholics, right? To be a Catholic, there's certain rights, there's certain responsibilities, there's privileges that we have by being members of the Catholic Church, which means we don't make up the rules, and we we do everything that we can to abide by what the church is asking of us. But the church doesn't want to be overbearing to a non-Catholic. So that's why there are a number of times when, yeah, actually it's more appropriate, it's accommodating to the non-Catholic to change some of those preparations. And probably the biggest changes happen in what the ceremony might actually look like. If it takes place in a Catholic church, if it takes place in another church, those are all of the things that are talked about when a Catholic marries a non-Catholic. And all of those have to have special permissions granted by the bishop, the local ordinary.
So, okay, let's continue with that thought then. How does marriage prep differ for couples that are married in a church other than the Catholic Church, but then they want to join the Catholic Church or be married in the Catholic Church? Because obviously people have been married in a different church. They've been married by the Justice of the Peace or whatever, and then later they come back and say, why are we married in the Catholic Church?
That's right. So when we do, man, I went through my record to see how many of my couples are already civilly married and then want to have what's called a convalidation, which a convalidation is, it's taking the union that is already present, and it's validating the marriage, right? But a convalidation is there's something new happening. There's an exchange of vows. I got in trouble one time, and I still don't have a good vocabulary to talk about this. People oftentimes say, okay, you're already married in the court, just go have your marriage blessed. Well, a blessing is from the outside in. A convalidation is an expression of the husband and wife's from their own will, from the inside out. And so it is the other way around. And so when somebody is already or previously civilly married, that process looks different. Sometimes it doesn't look much different at all, especially in the ceremony. And oftentimes, if somebody has been married civilly before, and maybe that union didn't work, and maybe they got civilly divorced, and now they're in a different place, and they want to be married again, that process always will have some type of an annulment as part of it. So one of the biggest things I do in my life as a priest out here in Garden City and Diocese Dodge City is I work with couples who are trying to convalidate their marriages. Right now, I looked at my file. I've got like 85 couples in marriage preparations here. Now, I don't do that many weddings every year, but some of those processes take a long time to come to resolution. But all that's tied up in when somebody coming from a different faith background, somebody who's coming from a prior union, all of that is brought into consideration into marriage preparations.
Hold that thought. I'm going to come back to that. We do have to ask another trivia question real quick here. And again, this is for 16 and under. And the question is, where can you find stories about the life of Jesus in the Bible? Is it A, Tobit, the book of Tobit, B, the book of Numbers, C, the book of Revelation, or D, the Gospels? Again, where can you find stories about the life of Jesus? A, the book of Tobit, B, the book of Numbers, C, the book of Revelation, or D, the Gospels. You may call in if you want to answer that question, or if you also want to make a pledge at 785-621-4110. Again, that's 785-621-4110. We're visiting with Father Jacob Schneider from Garden City about the joy of marriage. And I want to, you mentioned, Father Jacob, you have 85 couples right now in marriage prep. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Approximately, give or take one.
Yep.
How many of those you've mentioned the convalidation? How many of the 85 will be convalidated?
As to use Father Fred Gatchett terms.
that's a black and white term. We know that.
What I would call traditional Catholic couples who aren't already cohabitating, they're not living together, couples who don't have previous marriages or attempted marriages. I would say out of those 85, 5 of them
Wow.
are what I would call a traditional Catholic couple.
That's interesting.
Now there might be we have all kinds of couples who we know are already living together. Maybe they already have kids. I mean, everybody's got different stories,
Sure.
and it's a huge challenge working with them, because you want to have integrity in what the church is asking, and that's why it's the marriage preparation process. It's not the one meeting and that's it. So yeah, I would say less than 5% of my couples. Now, doesn't mean it's 95% convalidations.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that many. But I would say 5% or less of my couples would be what my grandparents, what my parents, what people, what any baby boomer would have conceived of a marriage, the marriage prep process. I would say it's less than 5% of our couples are that currently.
Yeah, my wife and I have been married 43 years, and that number, that was nowhere near that. Back then. So yeah, of course, that's just like you said, that's society today. That's interesting. Well, now, what is a declaration of nullity? Nullity. Declaration of nullity, because many people incorrectly think of this as a Catholic divorce.
So a declaration of nullity is what people call an annulment. Now, annulments there's a huge section in canon law about them. This is where I want to be very specific, or as specific as I can be. Most dioceses have very good canon lawyers who help us priests who think we know and don't know. Our number one canon lawyer in our diocese, Sister Janice Rohusky, she's incredible. She does a great job. I'm so grateful to God for her help with us. She helps keep things moving in the tribunal. But a declaration of nullity is this. It's a legal process being under canon law, that is trying to answer the question, did the sacramental marriage happen? I just got an email today of a lady that I'm working with in an annulment, and she talked about, well, is my Catholic divorce ever going to be finalized? And a divorce says there was a civil union. Now there is not. And a declaration of nullity, an annulment, does not say that. And a declaration of nullity, an annulment says, it makes a declaration, it makes a proclamation on whether or not the sacrament happened. What does that mean? Somebody can only be married once until their spouse dies. We get this from Jesus, Gospel of Matthew, when he elevates sacrament, the marriage to the level of a sacrament and the place of honor that it was always meant to be. Christ elevates the sacredness and the nobility of marriage above even how it would have been perceived in the Jewish context of his time. Okay, it's a sacrament. It's a outward sign of an inward grace instituted by Christ. Okay, so what a declaration of nullity says, because there is in the Gospels where Jesus says, right, when a husband divorces his wife and marries another, he commits adultery, unless if the marriage was unlawful. Now, I will be completely honest, maybe even brutally honest. Annulments, I love them and I hate them. Annulments are always painful. I haven't had one yet that hasn't brought up pain and some agony, because it's asking the question, all right, what happened obviously looked like a marriage. It looked like a man and woman professing their vows to each other. But was there something that has existed since the beginning that prevented, some obstacle, some impediment that kept that sacramental marriage from happening? And this isn't Johnny and Sally fell out of love 30 years in and they just decided to part different ways. I mean, that's not sufficient grounds for a declaration of nullity. An annulment is asking the question. It's asking the question: did the sacrament of matrimony take place? And if the answer is yes, then even if that couple is already civilly divorced, you are bound by that commitment, you're bound by that promise until death do you part. And if the answer is no, if the declaration of nullity comes back in the negative, so no, the sacrament of marriage did not take place for this and this and this and this reason, well, then that person is free to marry. Something to picture this, some image. A good priest friend of mine that I know, he used this example. Marriage is a 2-car garage, and there's only room for 2 cars. If somebody wants to be married and there's already somebody in that other spot, the garage is full. You're not free to enter into that marriage. But if the spot's empty, well then yeah, you can enter into the sacrament of marriage. But the only way to answer that question is to do this process, which is called the annulment, and ask for a declaration of nullity. And it can be a long drawn out process. That's some of the reason why I have so many couples. Some of them we're still waiting on annulments. But there's different types of annulments as well. So without opening up too many cans of worms, which I'm sure, man, yeah.
Just stay married. It's easier.
Annulments are messy.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they're always painful, but they do have the chance of offering the necessary healing at times that those former spouses need. It's about the declaration of nullity is about the mercy of God, and so we enter into that. And all of us priests, we try our darndest. We do the best that we can. But I don't know of any priest that likes doing annulments. But we understand the importance of them, and they're difficult. But in the fallen world that we live in, especially in the hypersexualized distortion of healthy sexuality that we live in, they happen a lot.
Well, thank God we have a merciful God.
Amen.
He's thought about all. He saw this happening many years ago and had to deal with it. So, real quick, I do want to do the trivia question again. We do not have an answer yet for where can you find stories about the life of Jesus in the Bible? Is it A, the book of Tobit, B, the book of Numbers, C, the book of Revelation, or D, the Gospels? You can call in at 785-621-4110. You can also call in to make a pledge. We still have $22,035 matching dollars, so anything you donate at this point will be doubled. So you can call us at 785-621-4110. If you have any questions for Father Jacob, you may text that to us at 785-621-4110. Again, we're visiting with Father Jacob Schneider from Garden City on the joy of marriage. Now, to make sure I'm not missing anything here, I want to make sure what graces do we obtain through the reception of the sacrament of holy matrimony? I want to make sure I'm not missing any.
So the graces of the sacrament of matrimony are many. I want to answer this question. I could talk to you about what we call the goods of marriage. We could talk about the procreative and the unitive goods of marriage. All of those are true. But I want to answer this question from the standpoint of married couples and the graces that married couples receive in marriage. I think I've asked dozens of couples this question since Nathan sent them to me, and one of the greatest graces is that one of a kind unity with your spouse. My mom would talk about this because mom and dad have been married. I'm going to screw this up. They've been married 45 years. They've been married 45 years. Yeah, because grandma and grandpa would have been married 70 years this year, but they just missed it. So when mom tells the story, there was a point in time in their marriage that dad decided he didn't want to live life without her anymore. Right? And not that long. What happened? Well, there was a point in their own marriage where beyond a shadow of a doubt, they fixed their wills to each other through their love of God. And so that first grace of marriage is being able to love in ways that you never thought possible.
Mm-hmm. I would
so
agree.
That death to self, to love for the good of your spouse. A lot of couples say the grace of marriage, one of the biggest graces of marriage is children. And I think that's absolutely true. And then that's part of the goodness of the intimacy of married life, that on a natural level, physical intimacy, right? The marital embrace is so good that new life comes from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely a grace of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So children, one spouse. I always tell couples that one of the biggest graces of your marriage is your husband needs to be an instrument of your sanctification and your salvation through your love of Christ, right? Your spouse should be the biggest pain in your and also the biggest love of your heart, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The biggest pain in your back and the biggest grace all tied up in your spouse, to draw the best out of you. And so the greatest grace that can come through marriage life is what we say in the nuptial blessing in the sacrament of marriage, that the husband would entrust his heart to his wife, and that at the end of their day, when one of the other closes the eyes of the other one for the last time, they would entrust them to the only one who loves them more than they do, and that's Christ. That's a Father Earl Beffer line that he used in all of his wedding homilies, right?
Mm-hmm.
The greatest
Yes.
grace of marriage is heaven. And marriage, rightly lived, right, in accord with what the church teaches us in the goodness of the spouse and the goodness of the sacrament, the goodness of intimacy and fruitfulness in married life, that's the grace of graces, to get to heaven and participate in that divine infinite goodness, that the inner life of the Trinity that marriage is supposed to be a reflection of.
Well, it's of course I am very happily married, and I thank God every day for my spouse. But it's just interesting when you talk about death to self, which is difficult. We're very selfish people, so nobody wants to give up their TV time or their personal time or whatever. But also when you said the love for the good of the spouse, and this is something that, of course, my wife and I are now in our late 60s. Our health, thank God, is still good for the most part. But
Right.
When you stand at the altar in front of all your friends and family and your priest, and you say, I take this person for better or for worse, in good times and bad, in sickness and in health. And this is something that I watched in my business. I worked with a lot of seniors, and it intrigues me how God matches this, because someone's going to take care of somebody. Very seldom did I see two couples that were both in very poor health. It seemed like one was in good health, one wasn't. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, "Who's going to take care of who?" I'm not a great caregiver. My wife is a great caregiver, but that's something that But as I look down the road, I thought, is it a sacrifice I'm willing to make? Absolutely. There's no question about it. And so it's just interesting. And then, of course, children are a huge blessing. They're also something that you grind your teeth every once in a while about. Like you said, they can be a pain in the back, and they can also be the biggest blessing in your heart. But when you look at them from as a gift that they are from our Creator, a gift from God, we're now dealing with our grandchildren, and I just love to spend time with. I love spending time with my children. I still love spending time with my grandchildren. It's just fun to watch them evolve and create and become the people that they're going to be. So they're just huge blessings of the sacrament of holy matrimony. Hold that thought. I do have a winner for our trivia question. Sarah Redmond called in, and the correct answer obviously is the Gospels, is where you're going to find stories in the Bible about the life of Jesus. So congratulations to Sarah. And again, if you want to make a pledge, we still have $22,035 in matching money. Call us at 785-621-4110. And we're visiting with Father Jacob Schneider on the joy of marriage. So, Father, any last comments you want to make about what you do and in the marriage prep and how you could help people? We talk about the difference between when your parents got married, which is about the same time my wife and I got married, and the folks being married today. What do you see the difference in those processes, and how can a person, what is the divorce rate in America right now? It's over 50%, isn't it?
So I just checked the recent statistics. It says 51%. I use a study. It came out in 2019. I can't remember how many couples it evaluated, and that 2019, before the pandemic, marriage was at 50%, 50-50. And this study was specifically looking at couples married in the church. And so I use this study because it illustrates beautifully when marriage is lived out with what the church is asking of us. And I use this in regards to the three goods of marriage: the good of the spouses, the good of the sacrament, the good of intimacy, the good of fruitfulness, right? This study looked at that. And so every couple, there's not a single couple that I've ever worked with who has ever said, man, I can't wait to get married because I just want to get divorced, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Nobody says that. Nobody says that unless they're crazy. And if they're crazy, we got other things, right? So every couple enters into marriage, unless they're nuts, every couple enters into marriage wanting the best for themselves and for their spouse. That, in a very simple way, that's the first good of marriage, the good of the spouses, to know that you're not alone in this fight, to know that somebody's going to be there for the rest of your life. It's a great yes. It's a great yes to the other. That's the first good of marriage. The second good of marriage is, as good and as beautiful as that yes is between husband and wife, God makes a yes. And that's the good of the sacrament. And that good is infinitely better and deeper and more profound. I always say marriage is not like my bank account. Okay? What do I mean by that? My twin brother is a better man than me. He's more virtuous because he has a wife, right? And I say that because his wife challenges him to grow in virtue more than my parishioners do, okay? But so in that good of the sacrament, it's saying that, right? So marriage is like my bank account. When I spend all my money, I'm broke. When husband and wife give their marriage away completely to each other, they're not broke. The Lord fulfills them and refills them in a more profound way. It's the only relationship that exists when you pour yourself out completely to the right person in the right way, in the right fashion, that you receive more than you put in. That's the good of the sacrament, because God is the author of it. And then so this study, right? 51% or 50% of couples end in divorce, but those couples who focus on those first two goods, the good of the spouses, the good of the sacrament, and by focusing on those first two goods, those couples went to Mass each weekend. Those couples who said yes, they got married in the church, they went to Mass each weekend, they had a 90% chance of staying faithfully, happily married. 10% divorce rate if you just go to Mass every weekend with your spouse. That study took one step further, and it looked at, okay, those couples who go to Mass together, and then they pray every day together. And praying every day for the study meant 4 times a week. That can be everything like praying before meals, praying before bed, praying whatever, just 4 times a week, praying as a couple. Those couples had a 5% chance of divorce, 95% chance of staying faithfully, happily married by saying yes fully to those first two goods of marriage. And then that third good of marriage, intimacy, children, sexuality, letting your faith inform your sexuality, keeping the obstacles of pornography and contraception out of a marriage, those couples had a less than 1% chance of divorce. So if you want a 99% chance of staying faithfully, happily married, you will live your marriage as God has created it and entrusted it to his church by saying yes to each other, that exclusive beauty of that great yes between husband and wife. That means no to a lot of other things. That great yes to God, making time for that intimacy that takes place in your souls when you pray together and thank God for your spouse in your spouse's presence. And that third step, saying yes to God's gift of sexuality within married life, to let it be life-giving, and to not live marriage, especially in regards to sexuality and sexual desire, as the soap operas or the world says.
Mm-hmm. No, it's so simple. When you put it that way, Father Jacob, it is so simple. Go to Mass, pray together, and enjoy each other. I mean, how difficult is that?
Well, we have a good job of complicating things.
Okay, we're gonna wrap things up. I have a couple questions, kind of off the pace here, but I still want to circle back because one question: what do you like to shoot?
What do I like to shoot?
Yeah, you said you like to spend time with your family, shooting and butchering and building anything you can. What do you like to shoot?
I at one point I was a pretty avid hunter. I don't make as much time for hunting as I would like, but me and a couple priest buddies, a couple times a year, we always go out planking. We all have probably too many guns than what I want to care to admit on radio.
Oh, never.
We like shooting stuff. I like hunting. So I shoot just about anything. Love shooting clay pigeons. What's been a huge joy of just shooting 22s and clay pigeons with my nephews and my nieces.
I agree.
And my brothers. It's great. It's just good old fashioned fun.
Very cool. So, one last question, and I'll let you close this with a priestly blessing. The girl of your dreams, where's she at? What's she doing?
She's married with 3 children, I think. No, she's an awesome lady. The next guy, so I tease her a little bit. We're still friends to this day. But the next guy that she dated, he is also a priest.
Oh, wow.
He's a priest for the Diocese of Wichita. But she's happily married, and I think they have 3 kids. But yeah, she's just a great gal, a wonderful woman.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time today, visiting with on the joy of marriage. A lot of interesting information. Again, would you give us your priestly blessing, and we'll close up our time.
Okay. Before I do the priestly blessing, I'll just say the beauty and the nobility of what marriage is something that it's one of the great mysteries and one of the most beautiful treasures and blessings that we have within the church. And so it's not easy.
No,
it's not easy at all. But it's so worth it. It's so worth it. Every one of them couples out there at the couple dance at a wedding where they hit 50 and 60 and 65 and 70 years married. Every one of those couples that is already married wants to be them.
Yep. But
that takes decades of sacrifice and dying to self. But it's so worth it.
It's worth every minute of it, without a doubt.
Jesus started his public ministry at a wedding, not an ordination.
That's right.
So let's pray.
Okay.
In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. May Almighty God bless you and keep you. May he shine his face upon you and grant you his mercy and forgiveness. May he turn his countenance towards you and forever give you his peace. And through the intercession of Saint Monica, the patron saint of all mothers and wives, through the intercession of Saint Joseph, the patron saint of all fathers and husbands, may Almighty God bless our marriages in the church and all over the world for the renewal and the goodness and the nobility of the vocation to the married life. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time on the call with us today, and have a great day.
God bless, Jim. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Father Jacob.
Bye.
Okay, we were visiting with Father Jacob Schneider from St. Anne's Parish he was from St. Anne's Parish in Olmsted, Kansas. He's in Garden City now. So last thing we're going to do is we're going to wrap up the day with our drawings. So I will turn on mic 3 for you guys, and anything you need to say, and it's all yours.
All right. Quick thank you. Shout out to everybody who listened today, who called in to donate or pledge, and who was praying for us today. We appreciate everything that you guys do. Could not do this without the rest of you guys out there as part of this family. Quick update right now. As of the end of today, we're looking at a total of a little over $36,000. So we're on our way to our goal. Still got a ways to go, though. We got 2 more days. We're only halfway there. We still have about 22,000 in matching funds, thanks to some very generous donors. So we'll start the day with that tomorrow, and look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. We'll do a trivia drawing right now.
No peeking.
Today's winner of the $50 gift card to Messenger Traditional Catholic Bookstore is Linda Corby. So congratulations.
Are we good? Do I need station ID and stuff?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and we're still live on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So check us out on there. I'm working hard on getting the videos up in a nice digestible format for those that might want to watch it later on YouTube. So I'll have a playlist on that coming out soon, sometime tomorrow. For those of us on the radio, we're listening on 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg, Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 89.1 KGOH Colby. And if I can steal a little bit of thunder from Father Fred, and the way he closes out Double-Edged Sword, where it all started, the original flagship station, 88.1 KVDM Hayes. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow at 7 a.m.